right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Naked Truth. I'm Jimmy the Square Guy, the one that talk fly to you before he lie to you. And we got Millie Angelo.
It's your boy Millie Angelo, man.
How you doing today, man?
I'm good. How you, man?
I'm alive.
Man, I'm chilling, man. I'm good. Just working consistently. Work, traffic, work. That's been my day.
Well, we got a very, very special and sensitive show today. So we're going to go and get into the TNT and get back to the show. Your boy R. Kelly back in the news. Did he pissed somebody off again.
Oh my God. R. Kelly, stop with the pissing.
This time he did an interview with Gayle King.
I heard he was in McDonald's recently.
I don't know about McDonald's.
McDoubles or McRibs
I
or
don't
something.
know, but he had an interview with Gayle King on CBS News, and he said that he is totally innocent.
Okay. To prove me guilty in the court of law.
Well, in this court of law, these days and time, you guilty until you prove yourself innocent.
I like how you put that.
And
Took me a second to get my mind around it, but I like how you put that.
And he has a lot of innocence to prove.
He does.
A lot.
He does.
And even Gayle say she didn't believe it. And he got very, very, very emotional. Crying, cussing.
And what was this at? Because I didn't see it.
It was on CBS News, an 80-minute interview.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So.
Aye. Okay. R. Kelly, get a great lawyer and pray.
You can't get a great lawyer with no money.
I thought he made bail.
Someone made bail for him. The lady said that it was not her money. She just did what she was told to do.
Well, somebody could help him get a good lawyer if they helped him get bail. Because what his bail was, $10,000?
It was a $1 million bond.
Oh, that's
$100 cash up.
Yeah, well, it's 12%, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So
whatever it was, he couldn't make it.
120.
He stayed 2 nights in jail.
Man.
And a man with that musical history, with that fame and fortune as he's supposed to have, you can't make a $100,000 bail bond. Something wrong.
I don't know. If I would have made that type of money, I would have had $100,000 hid somewhere I didn't know about.
I think he spent it all trying to keep them people quiet over the years.
That's
just my opinion about it.
That's what Renee said recently. So maybe Renee was on to something when she said that.
You know, because they have what, VH1 tapes?
Yeah,
you know
VHS.
You know how old those tapes are?
At least 20 years.
So that means he's been
probably more than that.
They've been holding those tapes for a long time.
Right.
And I think he's been paying them people to keep quiet for a while.
Yeah. So
finances got short, could no longer pay.
You need to tell the rappers and the actors out there, watch what they tweeting and screenshotting to people. Well, they come back and bite you 20 years from now, man.
Right. You got some tapes out there?
Yes, I do.
I am in need of another co-host because he will be in jail pretty soon.
I mean, it's not. No, look, I'm not slipping roofies. No underage women, but there's definitely some action I'm putting.
That's TMI. I won't help it. But anyway,
it's not for you. It's for our audience.
Okay, like you said, it took me a mile to wrap my mind around, but I got it.
Okay.
But anyway, that's our TNT for today. And now we bring our guest in. People, we have a very, very, very serious show that's, I really think the situation is sweeping our nation. I think that every, 1 in 4 families in the United States now have someone in their family that's autistic.
Mm-hmm. I heard it was 1 in every 30?
49 or 59, something like that.
Something kids?
This is a growing thing, and it's dominantly happening with boys.
I know.
That is always concerning me.
Now I heard it's it's over 50% that it's hitting boys faster than girls. I did hear that. I think it was 1 out of 88, and then out of the 88, it was 1 out of 54. I don't know. Maybe our guest can help us with those statistics, but
they have to, because
we
have
the wrong statistics.
We have Nicole Dahor from Success on the Spectrum, and we have the director of that company.
Okay.
Kendra Saddlefield. So let's bring our guests in and let them clear up a lot of this concern that people have. And
thank you very much for having us.
how you doing, Nicole?
Thank you.
How you doing, Kendra?
Good. How are you?
Oh, okay. Glad to have y'all on the show.
Thanks.
How y'all doing today?
Hello.
I'm good.
We meet again. Now, I think y'all heard our topic for today.
Yes, sir. Autism.
No,
The TNT.
R. Kelly.
Oh, R. Kelly.
Before we start, we want to get our TNT out of the way. We want our guests to chime in on today's topic. Do you think R. Kelly is innocent?
No.
Why?
After watching the documentary that was on Netflix, and I know the statistics of women who claim that they were sexually abused or raped is actually very, very low, that they lie about it. And the number of women who step forward is just overwhelming, and all of those women can't be lying. They're not trying to get money out of him. They're not trying to ruin his career that's already done. Hashtag Meet R. Kelly. But,
Wow.
but all those women can't be lying, and the evidence has piled up, and just because he's gotten away with it so far doesn't mean that it never happened.
Or it won't catch up with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I haven't done all the deep research that Nicole has done. Watch the documentary. But I'll go ahead and vote the opposite of Nicole and say, yeah, he's innocent. All the women are lying.
Don't say that. If you don't,
You're fired.
If you don't mean it, don't say it. You know,
I mean,
I kind of go with Nicole. It has to be some validity to this somewhere.
Why would they do it? There's no gain for them except to embarrass themselves.
Well,
If it's
some
a
say,
lie.
as he said, some say that book deals, record deals, movie deals, interviews, all that comes out of this.
One woman did get a book deal,
right.
and I don't know if they were paid for these interviews. I don't know if you saw the documentary. It was pretty low budget looking, and it was completely unfinished, and the background changed different colors a bunch of times. So I don't think it's that.
Paid attention to everything. Maybe you should have helped direct it.
No, it's. I just don't think they're lying, but I guess we'll find out. There's no way he can hide all of that for very long.
Yeah.
That's a lot
And he's
of,
in it quite a long time already.
that's a lot of evidence and a lot of different females.
Well, you know,
Didn't come out.
he was charged for this once before,
Twice.
about 10 or 15 years ago, and he beat it.
Once in Chicago, once in Florida.
And he beat the case.
He beat it.
And we all thought he was guilty then.
So is this like triple jeopardy?
I don't know.
Kind of sort of to a certain degree.
No, because he did it to
Different
multiple
cases.
women.
Yeah.
He can't be charged for doing it to the same girl, but
No.
she wouldn't press charges because
Well,
she was
I
embarrassed.
can-
That girl case has resurfaced, and that's one of the ones that's testifying against him. Now I don't know how that plays into the double jeopardy law, but
Right.
that's something to be seen.
Somebody, that's what I'm saying. He needs to hire him a better lawyer and get help with that since he can't afford it.
Okay. 832-694-8406. Y'all can call in, chime in on today's topic, or talk to our guests once they enlighten you on autism.
Definitely.
Nicole, why is this such a fast-growing epidemic?
I don't think there are more people with autism today than there were 20, 30 years ago. I think we just are getting better at recognizing the symptoms. We are better at diagnosing the disease. I think that we can just put a name to it now. Before it was just the weird kid in school. And now it's, no, they're not weird. Their brain is actually shaped differently. This is autism. So I think we're getting better at recognizing it, and so the count naturally is going to be higher, just because we know what it is.
And what you said now we can cure it,
There's no cure for autism, but we can treat the symptoms.
but that's not what Dr. Mark Hyman and Amy, I think Mayweather said. No, Amy Myers, MD. They both said that it's curable through diet.
Through diet?
Through diet. They say that if you remove the gluten, if you remove the pesticides, in fact, it was up on an environmental topic. They say that's one of the things that's contributing to the escalation of autism, and to reverse it would be to take this out of the diet, not just out of the kids' diet, but out of the future parents' diets. so they won't carry over to their
So when
children.
you say take it out the diet, what you mean, like pesticides and chemicals?
You have a lot of sugary foods,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what's that, gluten in foods, and they say these are the things that are contributing to autism.
So maybe it's the, excuse me, not to cut you off, maybe it's the parents. Is autism genetic? So
There is a
maybe
genetic
it's some of the
link.
things that the parents is intaking that's passing it down genetically to the kids, and the parents didn't have the technology to really realize that they was autistic due to the time period that they were growing up, but now they could have kids and now they could recognize that their kids have autism.
It's a really good argument.
Genetically?
So you saying it's not curable?
It is not curable.
Sure. And I mean, the gluten-free diet, there is a lot of, I mean, that's a theory that's out there, and that is something a lot of, families choose for their child. But there's no, we always, when we recommend things to our families, it's always what's research-based. What has been proven through research, not anecdotally, not like this mom did it and my son is suddenly completely perfect and normal. It's what does research show over and over again, and if it's research-based, then that means it can be repeated. So then other researchers should be able to do the same thing and get the same results. And they haven't found anything like that yet, except, in the field of like intervention, like therapy, that can help with the symptoms like Nicole mentioned.
Let me ask this question. Have they determined what actually causes autism?
No, I mean, they have discovered genetic links, so you can be predisposed to have autism more than one person or the other. But whatever triggers it is still unknown. A lot of people say it is the gluten and the dyes in food. We've heard theories that it's vaccines. We've heard theories.
I heard it could also be too much testosterone inside of the woman while she's pregnant.
Exactly, pregnancy problems, lack of vitamins, things like that. All of these things have been researched, but nothing has been definitively proven.
Okay. Then, is it something in males that why is it more in men than women?
And then why is it a testosterone thing inside the woman and not something of an estrogen thing? So now you're linking like the testosterone effect and problem that's in the woman that causes autism to the fact that more males have it.
Well,
I'm just linking
estrogen and testosterone in their systems. Women have both, and I mean men have both as well. We just have more estrogen, and they have more testosterone.
But again, have they
more
determined why is it more common in boys than girls?
I'm not sure that there's been any.
It is 5 times more likely for a boy to be diagnosed than a female. Not necessarily that more boys have it than girls, but boys are more easily diagnosed. Probably because the natural maturity level, girls always mature slightly faster than boys anyway, so it goes unnoticed longer.
But there is a higher prevalence in boys, absolutely, and I haven't personally read any research as to why yet. They call it the autism puzzle because they haven't figured it out, right? It's every case that I've come across, I've had parents tell me, my child was completely typical and he was talking, and then he had a double ear infection and got on all these different medications, and then suddenly he stopped talking. It's never been the same. Or we've had, he never started talking. Like every case is different. So they call it the autism puzzle because we don't have that answer. And they're still researching it and looking into it.
But from the research that I've done, they say 1 in every 4 boys are born with it.
It's not that high.
It's not?
I think it's 1 out of
One
every
every
45 children, period.
Okay, and that's what I've also seen, but again, when they said that, when they narrowed it down to those were girls and boys, it was 1 out of every 4 boys.
I haven't seen that statistic, but you might be right.
And that just intrigued me to wonder why would it be more in guys, males, and females.
I guess we have yet to figure it out.
Yeah, I know they're still definitely doing research on that, looking into that, because that's definitely a puzzle that, they haven't resolved. And we see that in our field. We definitely have more male clients than female clients across the board.
It could be possibly because the female has its own system that you guys have. I don't know what you call that system, you feel me? But maybe because y'all have your own system, and maybe a female girl system may react towards the autism and be able to react to it better than the boys would, due to the fact that you guys have this special system that you have?
More likely that the genetic link is found on the Y chromosome instead of the X, but we can go with that.
Now,
okay, you broke it down scientifically,
I
medically
mean, whoever
speaking.
passes, I mean, baldness technically, if you think about different genetic anomalies, baldness is passed down through the women's gene, but the men are the ones who get it.
Oh, wow.
Because it's
Are you
carried on the
serious?
X chromosome, so
I
if you're
thought-
bald, it's your mama's fault.
oh my God! Wait till I get home. No, I'm not bald. I'm just
telling you
But
right
these,
now.
That's
these
crazy.
chromosomes trigger in
I
certain
never known
people and
that.
carry in others, so
Uh-huh.
it's probably something
Ooh.
to do with that.
Ooh.
With as little knowledge as I have about genetic research.
Wow.
Mama. I love you,
So,
mama.
y'all guys here, it's your mom's fault, not your dad's. But the fact that a kid born autistic, you say his brain is wired differently. They said it's also linked to geniusness.
Very much so.
They say even Einstein now is possibly was autistic.
Right, they would consider him on like the high, like, because it's a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call like on the higher end of the spectrum, but it's not always linked to genius, because there is a high what we call comorbidity, where there's a diagnosis with autism and intellectual disabilities, which is learning difficulties. So it just depends on the child. But there are a lot of individuals who would score really high, who have autism would score really high on IQ tests and things like that. So they definitely have the ability to focus more than we do on a topic of interest, and they often do have genius type of skills, but it just depends on the child.
So
You say they have the ability to focus longer than we do?
On like a topic of interest, so we call it perseveration, where they might obsess over something, and so to us, like as a mom, that can be exhausting because your child only wants to talk about trains. And you're like, I'm so tired of hearing about trains, but they have this ability to learn everything there is about trains and how they work and what they do and memorize all this stuff. And as a child, that can be exhausting to have, but as an adult, the ability to hyper-focus on something, that's why you have the Einsteins out there who can solve all of these amazing mathematical things. It's because he could focus for hours and hours and hours, where I would have given up like long ago.
Especially in a society where multitasking is so popular.
It's essential for our culture, I think, to be able to multitask.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times this prevents adult people with autism from getting jobs or being on the workforce, because they are expected to be able to answer their phone and type out reports and do this and that. But with more awareness, we hope that employers will value the fact that somebody can be an expert in one subject naturally. And if they, lead themselves to a job where that's very useful, then it can benefit both employer and employee.
Now you have a school called Success on the Spectrum.
It is a treatment facility.
And do you, in that treatment facility, do you train kids to go out and get jobs so they can things like that, or just?
Yeah, so we teach, most of our clients are between, I think our youngest was 16 months to the age of 18. And so a lot of times what we're doing with our younger clients is would be skills that they would need for life. So we teach them social skills, communication, how to play and engage in appropriate play behavior, and then a lot of appropriate behavior. So what do you do when you go out in public? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate, things like that. How do we respond to stress in our environment? But then as they get older, we do need to look at job skills. And so we look at teaching them what's necessary. How do you do a job interview? If we have higher functioning clients, that might have to do that. Like, how do you fill out a resume? Things like that. How do you handle stress at work? How do we handle, if a boss makes you mad, you can't just cuss them out. Like, what do you
Because
do?
they're
How do you handle that?
And it's hard for emotional control. It's hard to learn that skill if it's not natural to
And what
you.
about the ones that's not able to speak?
Yeah, so we do communication training. for our nonverbal. We have a lot of nonverbal children. There's so much research on how to assist them in communicating. Some of them start off, they come in and they don't talk at all, but then, you know, we've used sign language, and that can help actually promote verbal speech. So they start off and they're signing, you know, that they want water, but then over time they learn how to say it, and there's a lot of research pairing those two together.
And you actually teach that upstairs?
We teach that upstairs.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And in addition, with our growing electronic culture, we use the iPad for a lot of these things too. Children can speak through their iPad. We have a few clients right now who are much older and they don't speak very much, but they can type whatever they want into their iPad and have the iPad say it. So this would help him potentially in his adult life to communicate with other adults, even if he wasn't comfortable verbally speaking to them.
Wow.
He was just move with his iPad and just type and just.
He'll type it. They have apps that you can do quick things like verbs and pictures of things that you don't have to type the whole word out. And it's very effective.
Okay, you got some things that you want to show on the chart about the brain, where it's derived from, where it sits at. With this. Let me pull some of that up right quick. Cause this is always just when I first met you and you told me what you did, it just baffled me.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see right there. So what are we looking at right here?
So these are the latest numbers from the CDC website that says 1 in 68 children that are born are diagnosed with autism. It was previously 1 in 88 as just a year ago. So we are seeing an increase in diagnosis over time. And again, most likely because we're able to recognize the symptoms, and because doctors are trained in medical school to recognize these things, as opposed to 30 years ago, they had never heard of it.
Right.
So I think the education, the awareness is what's contributing a lot to the increase in numbers.
Now, is there a vast difference between autistic kids and MHMR?
Yes, so they actually don't call it MR, so it was previously called mental retardation, and now it's intellectual disability. But yes, it's two completely different diagnoses. An individual with intellectual disability actually has to score below a 60 on an IQ test, and that's the diagnosing factor for that. So they struggle learning new skills, they struggle retaining some of that information. Individuals with autism might also have an intellectual disability, but really the autism diagnosis has nothing to do with their IQ. It has to do with, delay in speech and communication, what we call stereotypic behavior, so like repetitive behaviors, and then delays in social interaction.
Okay, but it all goes up under the same umbrella of mental health.
Yes.
They're all disabilities caused by brain abnormalities. Yes. That's how
you have a picture of that on here?
I do. I have a cute little graphic.
Is that it?
No, it's an umbrella actually.
So
there it is.
There you go.
Oh, the umbrella with the puzzle piece.
So all of these diagnoses are related under the same umbrella of brain abnormality. Some of these diagnoses technically don't exist anymore. They used to have savants, which was the most severe form of autism, where they couldn't function in the world at all. Kind of like Rain Man, he could count toothpicks that dropped on the floor, but he couldn't tie his own shoes. The savant is no longer a diagnosis, it's just severe autism. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there was Asperger's, where you could almost not tell that they had autism. They were just a little bit weird, or they started talking when they were 4 instead of 2, things like that. That's very mild autism. But now all of those have merged and become autism spectrum. So you can be on the light side, the heavy side, the moderate, the severe side, or anywhere in between.
Wow. Interesting. And so, go ahead. You should say something.
Yeah, Rett's disorder and PDD-NOS, was also diagnoses that were combined into the autism spectrum. And this can also contribute to the prevalence of autism rising, because where they used to be counted separately, they're now counted all together.
So just to have one of these symptoms doesn't automatically put you on a diagnosis of autism.
You need all 3 symptoms in order to have autism.
So if a child only has one, then what?
Then it's just plain speech delay.
He's
right.
what?
So if they only have a speech delay, a communication delay, then they're going to be diagnosed as speech delayed, and that's all. If they only
So would they be considered as a symptom of autism? No.
No, not typically. It really depends. Sometimes if the psychologist or whoever is doing the assessment determines they might call them autistic-like characteristics, but they don't actually meet all the criteria because it's very specific to meet those criteria. Then they might give them the diagnosis of PDD-NOS, which is the pervasive developmental disability, not otherwise specified. So they don't really fit quite into this small hole of autism, but they know that they have similar characteristics. But you have to meet all 3 in order to have the diagnosis.
And all 3 are what?
A communication delay, and then delays in social interaction, and then they have to have some sort of stereotypic behavior. So maybe like hand flapping, or maybe they quote movies, or they echo you, or you might see kids like rocking and things like that. So some kind of repetitive types of behavior.
I used to rock when I was a kid. No,
You
seriously.
have autism. And that's what I mean is a lot of people have little we all have tendencies. Nicole's a little OCD.
A little.
And a lot of children on the spectrum have those types of characteristics, but it doesn't mean Nicole is on the autism spectrum. She just has that tendency.
So I have a sidebar question about that. So is OCD actually considered a mental disorder? Or is it just someone who likes to clean or who have to have the lights out?
We are not experts in obsessive compulsive disorders.
I mean, I thought it fell under the umbrella of mental issues, so I thought you guys had that.
Well, a lot of people think that autism is a psychological disorder, like bipolar or ADD, but autism is actually a physical disability. The shape of the brain is different, or the wires within the brain are different. You can even see it on MRI scans sometimes if it's severe enough. So it's not actually a psychological disability at all.
But you won't see that in the CAT scan, the brain of someone with OCD. Is what you're saying?
I'm not an expert in OCD.
Okay,
I'm not sure about that.
It was just a sidebar question because
yeah.
I know I have it. Like I know I have it. Like I just left my house and like everything is like spotless.
I always knew something was wrong with you. I just couldn't.
Very much so.
I didn't have the guts to say it.
I mean, I very much so have mental issues. The name of my album is called Nervous Breakdown. So it's.
I think the thing that, like, for any of these issues to be diagnosed, it has to impair your daily living, right? So if your speech delay, if your social skills are impairing your ability to make friends or participate in school, then yeah, you need to go look at your child getting a diagnosis of autism. If your obsessive cleaning is keeping you from going to work or having friends, then yeah, maybe you need to go look at that. But if it's just you can live life and you're fine. It's not impacting your life.
I want a CAT scan. Tomorrow. I'm coming to get one. Tomorrow.
So you only have one school, right? That's a clinic. Let me rephrase that.
It's a clinic, not a school.
Okay.
So I own 2 of them in Houston, and then we also opened a franchising company. So we have several other franchises. We have 2 other franchises that are open now, and then more are going to sign on, hopefully. And we want to spread all throughout the United States to give children with autism access to the treatment that they need. There's not enough clinics out there at all.
That's awesome.
It is.
Thanks very much.
And
Thank you.
so the argument that it's a environmental issue is out.
You mean like the pesticides and the food?
Because
there's no research supporting that. Is all we can say.
But it's still ongoing research.
It could be ongoing research.
Is the research hidden?
There are certain things that have been researched more heavily than others that have been completely debunked, such as vaccines. It has been absolutely debunked by the scientific community as any kind of cause or trigger for autism.
I mean,
Very controversial topic.
very much so.
And reason I hesitate is I want to say this correctly, and I'm not the conspiracy theorist, but I know how if something does apply, if they don't want it to surface for whatever purpose, they will debunk it. And it does not mean that it's not
that is
the truth.
Yeah.
But logically, the vaccines that we have in the United States are different than the vaccines they use in Europe, different from the vaccines they use in Asia, different from or they don't give some vaccines in Africa at all. And the prevalence of autism is the same.
Because now I read today where these vaccines are not being thoroughly tested as they once were in the 80s. A lot of vaccines is being passed on.
Mm-hmm.
And almost as if they're experimental vaccines. And parents that are finding out are now no longer want their kids vaccinated. And they say that can be contributing to the rise of measles. Now their kids are being vaccinated with these experimental vaccines. It can contribute to autism. And
that would make sense if only the people who were getting these vaccines were getting triggered with autism. But it's happening all over the world, and vaccines are vastly different from country to country.
Well, I've worked with a lot of families who chose not to vaccinate,
mm-hmm.
and their child, I worked with a few families who the first child had autism, so with their next child they chose not to vaccinate,
mm-hmm.
but the second child was still diagnosed with autism, and so that, I mean, right there kind of debunks the idea that the autism is, there's a genetic link, clearly, because, with siblings, but if it was the vaccinations that was causing it or triggering it, then why would it have been triggered in the second child who did not receive any vaccination?
so basically, it can be something within the parents' genes.
It has to be.
So there's definitely a genetic link. It's not like on some disorders they find a gene, right, that's responsible for, and they haven't found that in autism. But there's definitely some genetic abnormality, and they know that if you have a child with autism, then you are much more likely than the rest of the population for your next child to have autism. So we know that there is a genetic link. My personal experience has been that there is typically some sort of environmental trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So for some families that I've worked with, like I said, they said their child was developing typically, then they were constantly getting ear infections, constantly on antibiotics, and after that their child was noticing. Some of the children they were behind on their vaccines, and then they got 5 in one day, and because they were catching up, and then after that they were never the same.
Yeah.
And so I personally have seen that we know that there's a genetic link, and there has to be something going on that might trigger in that child, but I don't think it's, vaccines cause autism or antibiotics cause autism. There's just something their body can't process.
But could it be the vaccines from our parents' generation? They've gotten in our genes that's now producing more kids with symptoms or kids that are autistic.
The antibodies that are created by vaccines. So a vaccine doesn't stay in your body.
Mm-hmm.
They inject it in, your body creates antibodies against those. It basically learns how to attack should the real virus ever enter your system. The actual vaccine gets flushed out like everything else, but antibodies are not transferred through the placenta to a child. That does not go into your offspring.
And I know some of my questions may be like rhetorical questions, but it just, when I first found out about autism, it stunned me to know that all of a sudden it just popped out of nowhere. But you say that it could have been 50 years ago, we just didn't have the technology to
Well, they
diagnose
used to
it.
diagnose everybody as basically insane. That's everybody. So if you had mental retardation, if you had schizophrenia, if you had autism,
OCD?
it was,
I'm joking.
you had OCD, it was all lumped together. They were all called insane,
Mhm.
and they were all sent to these homes, these insane asylums, and that's where they were all lumped together. So it's really hard to tease that apart to say that it's increased, because really they were just all thrown together, and now we know that schizophrenia is nothing like autism. And we know that mental retardation is nothing like autism, and so we now have teased that apart.
Mhm.
So it's not that it popped up out of nowhere, it's that we developed an awareness of it.
Yeah. And the
That
technology.
makes sense. Now, for those parents that have someone that's autistic and they don't have the funds to get them the treatment that you provide, how do they do that?
Well, health insurance pays for the treatment of autism.
Mhm.
What we do is called ABA therapy, or applied behavior analysis. And health insurance, because ABA has been proven to scientifically work, or scientifically proven to work, should I say, insurance does pay for that. Even the ACA, Obamacare plans do cover this treatment. If you have absolutely no insurance, there are several grants, several scholarships that the government or private organizations or nonprofit organizations offer to help kids access this care. And they don't necessarily pay for the treatment, but they will pay for you to get insurance because it's cheaper to do it that way.
Is there any home remedies you guys may know? Let's just say the parents just couldn't do anything. Any home remedies you have? Or is just
Like magic cures.
Not a magic
There
cure,
are magic
just like little things you do around the house to manage the behavior or
Right.
things like that.
ABA is not magic. I mean, it's just a teaching method.
It's, you know, I mean, I encourage parents to do research. If you're going to research, make sure that, like, if you look on websites, that they are, you know, scientific or they are research based. You're not looking at, like, the mom's blog who just made it up.
Right.
But there's a lot of good information out there. If you look up applied behavior analysis, a lot of school districts offer trainings. A lot of like MHMR or ECI programs will offer training. We have training once a month.
Free to the public,
At
where we
both
educate parents.
locations. And so what we provide is we go over basics of behavior, right? And how do you respond to those behaviors? And how does that shape your child's behavior? And so those are on Saturdays, and you can find that on our website. And I mean, that provides a lot of information for
Can you get a
parents.
website out real quick?
You can search through our Facebook page, Success on the Spectrum, and we list out, I think we have all the dates listed for the entire year of all the free parent workshop trainings that we have on both the Medical Center location and the Southwest Houston location that we have. And the new franchises that open will also offer these free parent trainings for the public. Even with our clients that we serve, it is essential that the parents learn how to respond to behaviors at home, like you say, because you can't just do one thing during the day and a different thing when you get home. It has to be consistent for it to work.
right.
Now, here's my personal question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want. Normally when people get involved in things and they're that passionate about it, it's something because it strikes home. Your son is not autistic.
No.
So why are you so passionate about this?
You know, I got into the field when I was in college, and I had a professor in school who was just passionate about it, and so that summer I volunteered at a school here, and I just really fell in love with the students, with the kids. It wasn't any family member that triggered that, but like for me personally, but I just absolutely fell in love with it. I always knew I wanted to help children, you know, but I looked into social work and I was like, I don't think that's for me, but you know, I just fell in love with the way that their minds work and the way that a lot of them know so much, but it's just like getting it out there and teaching them how to express it and how to show it to us. And it was just so exciting every time, like, they said their first word or they did something new. And so I just fell in love with, like, helping those families.
Sounds like it's a challenge and a passion to you.
Absolutely.
And Nicole.
My daughter was diagnosed with autism when she was 2. She got ABA therapy until she was 7, and she went from being moderate severe. She wasn't speaking, she was throwing tantrums, she wouldn't eat anything but hot dogs and Caesar salad, two most random things
I love
ever.
those things.
That's all she would eat. She would try
Oh my God.
nothing else.
We do
She
Caesar
wasn't
salad.
potty training, and after ABA therapy, she was a totally different kid. It worked. It rocked our world. It was incredible. Just one year to the next, it was like she was becoming normal, if that there is such a word. She'll always have autism. There's never a cure. But now she's able to participate in a mainstream school, regular classroom, no special needs classroom. So it's something that is going to give her a normal life. And that's what we see our kids in the clinic step towards, slowly but surely. They go from not being able to function, not being able to leave their homes, to being able to go shopping at Target with mom and not have a tantrum, or being able to, as an adult, live on their own one day.
So can you say that consistent learned behavior be almost a cure, as if they're growing out of it?
Not a cure, but a treatment. I mean,
Okay.
they'll always have autism, but we teach them to function in a way that they can still live fulfilled lives and still be proud of themselves and still make their own money.
Again, here's a personal question. You say that your daughter will always have autism.
Mhm.
What is she doing now that shows those signs?
She does, I mean, she'll never be the most popular girl in school, I suppose, and she'll
Okay, join the crowd.
she'll tell you that she's very awkward. She makes very good eye contact with me, but if we go out to eat and she has to order her own food, she looks down at the ground. Eye contact becomes uncomfortable for her. She has to kind of force it with strangers. She's fully able to communicate now. She's fully verbal, sometimes a little too much.
Yeah.
But she does have emotional regulation problems, impulse control problems, and it will always be a little bit of a struggle for her, but she can handle it.
And you
with
don't
the
think
tools.
you don't think she would ever develop to the point where that doesn't bother her for the eye contact and whatnot?
I don't know.
Does
I
it
mean-
take, like, maybe in training? Like, well, not really training, but just for her to get comfortable at it and to practice it. So
Because I wasn't always able to look at people in the eyes.
Yeah, but it's
I
like
can do it
being
now.
naturally
I
athletic.
can do it now.
If some people are born with they're naturally athletic and some people are not, can they play soccer over and over and over and over and over again to where they're good at it? Sure, but does it still come natural to them? Probably never.
Right.
But they
so
can fake it good enough. I
And
guess.
it might be that, yes, she's learned the skill of eye contact. I have the skill, I make eye contact, I know in all situations, but then they get into an uncomfortable situation or a stressful situation, we all tend to revert back to
What's
our
next?
core of who we are, right?
Yeah.
And so in those stressful situations, that core is still gonna be who she is, and that core is still gonna be, this is uncomfortable, I'm already stressed out, so maybe normally she can't handle that. But then there's too much going on, and eye contact I can't even think about handling right now, right? I'm
Right.
handling all this other stuff.
Right.
But those who are not diagnosed as autistic have those same difficulties at times at certain stress
Sure.
levels.
But again, autism is the combination of speech or communication problems, social problems,
Mm-hmm.
and repetitive or obsessive behaviors. So you have to have all three.
So
combined
if
to be autism.
she no longer shows the signs of those all three, you would still consider her as always being autistic.
Yes, because there is no cure, you can't be cured, but there comes the point where she doesn't need the treatment anymore.
And I'm not an expert, and I'm not trying to challenge you, but I'm just.
I'm not an expert either.
I'm just asking you the questions I know other people will say. You say there's not a cure, but if there's still research going on as to why it happens, who would say that they won't find treatment to say that it's a cure?
Well, I don't think that Nicole's saying that there's never going to be one. I don't know what that would look like, but I love that there's still research going on, and there are still
Mhm.
scientists that are adamant about looking into that. But as of right now, there's a lot of claims out there for cures. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people praying, and it breaks my heart, but praying on our families because these parents are desperate to help
Mhm.
their children. They're like, oh, we have this miracle cure, and all you need to do is do this, this, and this, and then your child will not have autism. And it's costing them $15,000 that these families don't have,
Mhm.
and it's not a cure. It's
A lot of
bleach
money
or,
making schemes out
yes,
there.
and
Absolutely.
it's heartbreaking to see these parents, forking out all this money for something that claims to be what it's not.
Wow.
But
And with the cure, again, you have to revert your mind into thinking this is not a psychological disability. This is not something you can take a pill and your brain will suddenly work right. It's a physical disability. Their brain is shaped differently. So if you were born without an arm, is there a cure for you to get your arm back?
No. But correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't your brain, or can your brain be shaped or reformed as you grow older?
Your brain stops growing when you are 25. So you can.
So that's what happened.
I beg to differ. I beg to differ.
I do.
I so beg to
I mean,
differ.
I read
to
that somewhere. But
I mean, but I'm
it is
contrary
a
to your
muscle that can be exercised to be stronger in areas that it naturally wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So it technically doesn't stop growing if you can always stretch it.
But
that was a metaphor.
in the sense that you said that their brain,
Maybe
in the
I'm
sense that you
being-
said
I'm
their
being
brains
a little-
are shaped differently. I'm just asking,
Well-
can or will it possibly can be reshaped? No.
I mean, one day there might be a surgery that exists that we can pinpoint what exactly is wrong, what wire is mismatched, and they can go in there and switch them around.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. But as of right now, we barely have the technology to operate on people's backs, so I wouldn't go around digging in brains just yet.
So what part of the what part of the brain that is in? Like,
Well, that's what makes
I saw-
autism so different.
I saw the chart you had.
It affects different areas of the brain in all kids. So depending on what symptom presents in you the most is the
Okay.
area of the brain that's affected.
Because I was looking at your chart earlier and I was wondering, like, was it
It's not specific.
okay?
It's just a graphic. But you know, the frontal lobe controls personality. There's a certain piece of the brain that I don't remember what it was that controls impulse control or emotional regulation, and maybe that part of the brain is what's affected in that particular child, and so it manifests in that way.
Wow.
Which is why every child with autism is so different. I mean, we have some that are bouncing off the walls, and some that we can't get up out of the beanbag chair. they're all so different.
Wow. So y'all have I've been up there twice, and
wanna
I used to be a hospice worker, and I used to walk in the hospital sometimes. It was just total chaos, you know, with the patients and the nurses. Then I walked up there, I was like, "Who they got their hands?"
It's a tough job.
Me too, and
Very.
it's busy, but we have, it's a one-to-one therapy, so it's one therapist with one child.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, the safety factor covered, because we do have a lot of kids who like to run, right?
Yeah.
And so we have that one-to-one to make sure that they're safe.
Have any ever gotten out? No, you can't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Honestly,
I don't want
they
to
don't
do
get never happened. It's never happened.
No.
They've tried. I'll have
They
you
will
know.
always try.
They will always
Hey,
try.
Billy, come on.
And it's usually more because it's a game, right? So they think they're
It's
playing
fun.
chase. They don't realize that this is a safety issue, but they're like looking back and laughing. But it feels, I think, to an outsider coming in, it feels like chaos. To me, it feels like a Monday, right? It's just, this is what life is. But we have, we have one-to-one staff, and so the kids get so much of that, like, one-to-one attention, and that's the difference between a child going to a public school at age 5 and getting ABA therapy is no public school can provide a one-to-one for every kid.
And that's why you kept correcting me when you say it's a
We're not
clinic
a school.
and not a
Right.
school. Because a school, you may have one teacher, 30 students.
Exactly.
And in this school, as I kept saying, in school, you can have one therapist
One therapist
with
per child.
3 kids, but it's not like that. It's always one-on-one.
Oh,
It's
Which is-
one-to-one.
that's
Whenever
great.
they get to a level where they're higher functioning,
Mm-hmm.
then we do start putting them in like small groups to help them learn how to learn. The goal is for them to be in school,
Yeah.
right? And so I can't take them from a 1-to-1 setting to a 1-to-30 setting. So we kind of slowly grow that. So they learn
Okay.
how to learn and function in a group, and we put them in those environments. But right now, for the most part, most of our clients are in that 1-to-1, and that's what they need. And we're so excited that we get to provide that for them.
You have to really, really love what you do to
absolutely.
put up that on a daily basis. Because I know it can get you on the tip of your nerves.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I
but that's
think
everything. I mean, my job, come on, man. You always, it doesn't matter what you do, you always gonna be on edge at your
Yeah,
job.
but kids is enough. Kids are very, very challenging.
It's physically
I don't have any
exhausting.
kids, but my nieces and nephews, I can send them home, but they are challenging.
They wear you out.
Then,
They wear you out.
then to have one that have a disorder, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
compound the situation.
Well, I think that's why parents have to be really picky about what clinic they choose for their child, because it can be stressful, and you want to make sure that you're sending your child to a clinic where the people love the kids and love the clients and care about what they do, because if they don't, your child's gonna get on their nerves and they're not gonna be treated with respect. And our goal is, you know, all of our BCBAs who are the ones who are over the programs, and they just love what they do. They care about their clients, and that's where you want your child to be.
Right.
You know, not necessarily only with us, but with a clinic who genuinely cares about the progress of your child, genuinely cares about them, because you're right, it can be stressful. And if you're stressed out and don't like what you do, then you're probably not going to respond really well.
So you can't be in this for the money.
It can't be just a paycheck.
Not long term, for sure.
It can't be just a paycheck. You have to love it. It's too difficult of a job and too important for the kids that they get the high quality treatment. And if you don't love what you do, then the quality's just not there.
And that's why I asked a personal question, because for you to be that consistent and that passionate about it, I just feel like it had to be personal.
It is personal, but the reward of seeing a kid, I mean, if you would think about your own kid, you love this child and you see them take their first steps, it's like the most exciting thing you've ever experienced. We spend 8 hours a day with these kids. They come to us instead of school, right? So they're with us 8 hours a day. We are with them more than we are with our own children. We grow very attached to them, and when you see them for the first time trying a new food that they never tried before, it is so exhilarating. It makes everything worth it. It makes everything worth it.
Okay, you say you had 2 kids.
That's good. I like that.
Which one is autistic?
The younger one.
The younger. And that never entered your mind, wow, this one was and this one wasn't?
I mean, even in our clinic, we have siblings. We have twins. One of them that has autism and one of them doesn't.
Because they have 2 autistic twins. I think his name is Lo and Flo. They're twins. They're both autistic, but they are super geniuses. They can remember every album, release date, amount of units that was sold, everything on point.
Yeah.
But I was just curious that
My daughter is currently obsessed with music, and she can name album title, the year it was released, without everything, but she can't lock the front door. It's just simple things that escape her. She can do math problems in her head that you can't, like, what is the square root of 1,000,000? I don't know. She can do it in her head, but if you ask her to do something, I keep using the front door because that's the thing I get irritated with the most. Just close the door. But it's the simple things that escape her. If it's something like, if somebody gives you a compliment, say thank you instead of shying away.
That's what she does.
Then it's the simple things that escape her. But her brain is so capable of doing math and so capable of memorizing random facts. You just never know how it's going to affect your brain.
Does that frighten you too? Well, I don't think that's a good question, because if your first child was autistic, I would then think that you would be afraid to have another one.
I guess all parents are.
There is that fear. I've talked to a lot of parents just over the course of my career who they get nervous, right? They're pregnant and they're having another child, but there is that fear for sure, because there is a lot of research and study on the genetic component. But I think just knowing that whatever happens, especially if they're getting therapy, especially if they have support and they have help, we try to be there not just to help that child, but we're there to support the family, like the family unit, and what can we do for your family? That behavior plan doesn't work for your family. Okay, well, let's sit down and tell me why, and we can adjust it. We want to support the family, and if they have that support, I think it's probably a little bit less scary because they know they have
sense
that.
of control that you know how to help your child because you've done it with the first one. I think it's much less scary for the second, but all parents are gonna have that
Do
fear.
you, as you said you like to help the family in a whole, but do y'all have any specific classes or training for the parent itself?
We do. So like Nicole talked about, we have a free parent training workshop, and that's monthly, and that's free to anybody. That's not just our clients, so anybody can go to that. But then also for our clients specifically, we do intense parent training. So we do like in-depth parent training on behaviors, on language, communication, and then their BCBAs meet with them consistently to train them on things that are specific for their child.
Right.
When we do hands-on training, so you come into the clinic and here's what we're doing, and now you try it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they try to take it home, and there's a lot of training that's involved in that.
Okay.
So do the kids come to you guys 7 days a week, or is it just
5 days. Just
Okay.
like school.
Okay, so it's like school.
8 to 3, 8 to 4.
Oh.
Depending on their level. We have some that come just part-time because they're part-time in school and part-time with us. But a majority of our clients, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
Okay, we winding down now. We got a few minutes left. You want to give your website out again?
You can find our Facebook, Success on the Spectrum. That is the one that has all of our events listed, but our URL website is www.successonthespectrum.com.
And Kendra, you got any special website or anything they can contact you on, or is it the same as hers?
It's the same, yeah.
Well, y'all just together on everything.
We are together on everything.
So-
We're a franchise company, so you can find a location near you through the website. And hopefully we can get treatment for all of the kids out there, not just in Houston.
Okay,
That's good.
that's good.
Hope you guys branch out as far as you can go.
Thank
Thank you. That's the goal.
I really applaud you for your efforts, because
It's a lot.
It's a
Yeah.
mama's mission, and it's all the people who want a brighter future for tomorrow for our kids.
well, talking about it and being about it is two different things.
It's true.
I hear a lot of people say they want a bright, better future and make America great again, but they're not willing to put in the work to do so.
Well, we put in the work.
Exactly, exactly. I see that.
Exactly.
But we're gonna wrap it up. That's our show for today. Success on the Spectrum.
Google
Cole
it.
Doctor. I'm sorry. And Kendra Satterfield.
Yeah.
Satterfield.
Yeah.
And they own and director of Success on the Spectrum.
Yeah.
And you got a phone call. You should have told me to call this phone.
They called the wrong phone.
They called the wrong phone.
Honestly.
Before we go, you got any shout outs? You want to say anything to anybody?
We want to thank all of our employees who work so hard for us every day, all of our behavior analysts who struggle with the paperwork, and the parents and the clients every day. I want to thank Kendra for being the clinical director and helping me build this company from the ground up. I have the passion, you have the passion and the education, and I can't do one without the other. And of course, our office manager and human resources director, Daisy Rios, who's also been with us from the very beginning. We couldn't have done it without that team effort, that group effort.
I got a solid team, so I'm like very
We
solid.
do.
It's like you're a visit up there. No, don't go. They may lock you up there.
We'll
I
keep
know,
you
they
in
might-
there.
Don't
yeah,
do
they-
that.
they-
You can play in the ball pit with the kids.
Okay, great, awesome.
Okay, that's our show for today. And remember, you can give without loving, but you cannot love and not give. Again, you can give without loving, but you cannot love and not give.
Ooh,
So-
one more time. Hold on, I don't think they caught that.
You can give without loving, but you cannot love and not give. So
Facts. No
that's,
further.
That's the truth. That's the naked truth. And we thank y'all for tuning in. Again, we thank our guests. Thank y'all for shining light on a subject that a lot of people just, like myself, much as I know about it, I'm ignorant about it.
Yeah, I was very ignorant to prior to today.
Yeah. Now thank
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
you. Anytime. Again, they call me
Wrong phone. Oh my god, I gotta give them the right number.
Well, thank y'all, and we're looking forward to seeing y'all again sometime.
Part 2. Success of
Yeah.
the spectrum of success.
Success on the spectrum.
Success on the spectrum. Part 2.
Oh,